Afternoon, listeners. Welcome back to the GameDay Squad NRL Show, brought to you by GameDay Squad, Australia's very first fantasy sports platform powered by the Ethereum blockchain. Today, a very special episode as we are introducing our NRL fantasy scoring system. Also, first time with the vids on. Joined here by Praneet, one of the boys here. Praneet, how you doing?
Yeah, glad to be here. Glad to talk some fantasy.
Nah, mate, too right. Good to see you. Mate, before we get any further, just give the listeners and the viewers maybe a bit of an intro to yourself and your favourite team, who you support.
So yeah, massive NRL fan. Love coming from actually NRL fantasy in particular, but have touched a little bit on Supercoach in the BBL format. And for my team, it's got to be the Eels. You know, I'm a diehard Eels fan. I love to see them. Hopefully, they can get the premiership. But, you know, I'm just expecting to have my hopes disappointed once again, you know.
Yeah, you're fair, mate. Oh, well. Tough life in the day of an Eels supporter. But, mate, you had a pretty good NRL fantasy finish last year too in 2021, yeah? You went pretty well.
Yeah, finished 31st in the end, so really holding those trades late in the back end of the season really helped me out. I know a lot of people burnt through those trades on their, centers or some of their halves getting injured, so it's good holding them and really helped me climb up later on.
Mate, I was hanging on to the edge of the top 2K, so you're better qualified to be talking about this sort of stuff than me, that's for sure.
Well, let's see in the GameDay Squad fantasy season how we do.
Yeah. There'll be some rigid competition, that's for sure. No, cool, mate. Well, good to have you on, and yeah, it's good to we'll go through the I guess a bit of an intro to the GameDay Squad Rugby League fantasy sports platform and give our users a bit of an idea as to what they can expect.
Yeah, can't wait to hear it. So, just want to ask you a little bit about, when someone really starts and gets onto the GameDay Squad fantasy platform, what can they really start to expect?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, true. So, I guess like a quick overview of the GameDay Squad idea as a whole. What we are doing is kind of bringing fantasy sports onto the blockchain. Now, cliche as that kind of may sound, what that really means in practice is that the players in your fantasy sports teams are going to be NFTs, and if you hold one of the cards which relates to those players, you own it. You can do whatever you like with it. You can buy more, you can sell the ones you own, you can play them in your team, or you can hold them on your bench. If you want to hold on to them for years, you can do that. You can even delist them and in exchange get things we're calling draft tokens, which you can then use to go and bring in rookies at the start of next year. So really, the big difference between GameDay Squad and your traditional fantasy platforms is that when you have a player in your squad, you own that card, you own that player, and you can do what you please with it.
Yeah. And so what's the breakdown? I hear that a lot of the GameDay Squad and NRL fantasy players do get some starter packs when they really start the game. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, mate, that's right. So when you start out playing, you don't have to put any money down or anything. As soon as you go on and set up your account and register for the Rugby League fantasy game, you get 30 free NFTs off the bat to string your team together. So that's one thing we really did want to make sure was that people don't have to pay to play or even be very competitive at this game. You can turn up, hold on to your money, don't part with any coin, and still have a pretty good fantasy team. So essentially, what's happening when you register, you'll get some starter packs to cover each position you need to put forward for a team. So you're going to get your hands on 3 centres, 3 hookers, 6 edge forwards, 6 halves, 6 middle forwards, and 6 winger fullbacks as well. So they're all coming out in starter packs. So you'll be able to rip them open from day one, which hopefully that's coming pretty soon. We're targeting end of Feb.
Yeah, it's great to hear. So you're going to have a little bit of depth in each position, really allow some of those injuries like we had last year, which was just destroyed a lot of the NRL fantasy and Supercoach teams.
Yeah, too right. And, the laws of probability are going to do their thing. So in those starter packs, you could strike gold and land Tommy Turbo or Cleary or Brian Toto or someone like that. But, you mightn't be so lucky and you might get your hands on a bit of a fringe first grader or someone who comes off the bench. So yeah, we wanted to make sure that everyone's got a bit of depth just so you can put forward a decent team from day one without having to part with any cash. We really want to make this game available to the masses here. So yeah, hopefully people dive in head first and get their hands on some free NFTs.
Yeah. And I just want to move a little bit now more to scoring. So this is what we're here for today. I want to talk to you about what the changes are with GameDay Squad and how it's different from a lot of the different other platforms.
Yeah, mate. So it's the scoring system we've set up is pretty unique, which is pretty cool. You and I both, we've played a bit of NRL fantasy, we've played some Supercoach too, but we did really want to change it up for GameDay Squad and just make it, I guess, a little bit more interesting and a bit, in my mind, even a bit more fair, and a bit more spicy too. So yeah, there's a couple of things which we are changing up. Rule of thumb: your attacking stats are worth a little bit more. And on the flip side, the demerits which are associated with some of your negative plays, so errors, penalties, etc., you get docked a few more points there too. So the penalties are higher. So yeah, more for scoring actions, but also more for demerits. So should be interesting.
So yeah, let's dive a little bit deep into that. I see that penalties are at -4, errors at -4, sin bins at -6, and send-offs are at -12. So someone like a Victor Radley or someone like a Pangai Jr. is really going to be affected, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I guess at the end of the day, it depends how they adapt their kind of play style and how they go moving forward. But yeah, looking back, we've kind of crunched the numbers here, and players like your Pangais and your Radleys and your Matt Lodge, who do have a penalty or two in them, they get sent off every now and then too. That really won't be helping your team score if you've got too many blokes like that in your team. On the flip side, tries, they're worth more points now. So in our game, tries are worth 10 points, whereas traditionally they were worth 8. Also offloads, they're a good scoring mechanism for some of those forwards too. They can rely on them. They're still getting meters gained. They're still making tackles, which is good. But yeah, if you're those volatile players which do have a penalty or two in them, yeah, mate, you don't want to have too many of them in your side, that's for sure.
And one really interesting one is I really like the kicking meter change that you've made. So you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, can do. So, obviously kicking meters in traditional fantasy terms has been a pretty important way for halves to rack up points. So last year with NRL fantasy, we saw halves getting 1 point for every 20 kicking meters. But we saw some games where like Jake Averillo or Cleary came on the scene and they were kicking like 400, 500, 600, 700 meters in a game, just absolutely cleaning up points. And if you had those guys in your team, awesome. Now we have wanted to kind of, I guess, reel that in a little bit. So we're giving out 1 point for every 30 kick meters. So I guess, yeah, logic behind that is just to try and stop those kicking meters from being too overpowered. In saying that, for halves, they're an important part of the team. They're an important part of NRL in real life too. And your kicking game is so important. Like, it goes a long way to, a good kicking game goes a long way towards winning a footy contest. So, yeah, we've wanted to reward it, but we have reeled that in a bit. So, your halves, which are kick meters dependent, they are going to need to find some other ways to score in the GameDay Squad system.
Yeah, and I noticed you've opened up a couple of different avenues. You've had the forced dropouts, which have gone up as well.
Yeah. I think here at GameDay Squad, we did identify that there were a few stats in traditional fantasy terms which just weren't being rewarded properly for the sort of impact they do have on a game. Forced dropouts resulting in repeat sets. That was a prime example of that. So we've boosted the points with that a little bit. We've gone from 2 to 3, which is good. And you'll really start to see teams who have halves which know the importance of building pressure and can put it on the toe in the end goal and get a repeat set or two. They'll really start to score worthwhile points for your team. So if you can get a few of those mature halves, so we're talking about your Cherry Evans, your Cleary, even Fogarty, he loves a repeat set or two. So those sort of mature halves who know a lot about building pressure, if you've got them in your team, mate, you'll be laughing.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the key changes that's going to affect everyone is the missed tackle change. So it's gone from -2 in traditional fantasy to -3 here. And so how do you feel like that's going to play out for different positions?
Yeah, mate, it's a good question. We're starting to see NRL and the game itself just become so much quicker. With the rule changes the NRL have made, they're almost doing everything they can to increase fatigue And as a result, we're seeing more missed tackles. Now, those missed tackles often are becoming the difference maker in a tight context, particularly in the late stages of games. So, essentially, if you've got players that miss tackles and can be a bit of a turnstile on the on the paddock in your fantasy team, that won't be helping you out too much. Now, halves we're seeing get targeted a lot from your big forwards. It's always been a strategy. Send your big boppers like Payne Haas running straight at little halves.
Sam Walker game last year, hey?
Yeah, too right. And that strategy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But halves probably are going to lose some points as a result of that. Also, your edge forwards who can miss a tackle here and there. Your centres too, who can miss a tackle. They're probably not going to fare too well from that rule change. But on the flip side, I think with the way that we've kind of adjusted our approach to attacking stats, I think we might see it balance out. And your centres and some of your wingers in particular who haven't been that fantasy relevant in the past, given that they do rely on those attacking stats so much. Having boosted those a bit, we'll start to see those players become a little bit more relevant in fantasy terms too. So, yeah, we're thinking it's going to even the playing field a bit between positions on the park, which should be good.
Yeah. One of the unique ones, actually, which traditional fantasy games don't really touch as much, is the difference between the 1 point and the 2 point field goal. So, do you want to touch on the changes you've made here?
Yeah, can do. So, in NRL fantasy, they're only recognising 1 point field goals as a scoring action, and I think usually they were worth 5 points or something like that. Now that personally, I thought that was a bit weird because obviously a field goal's worth 1 point, but conversions are worth 2, and they'd only get you 2 fantasy points. Now, in saying that, they often do come in game-winning scenarios, and they are harder to hit, particularly when you've got angry forwards with steam blowing out their ears coming after you. I can kind of see why they were set the way they were, but 2 point field goals were introduced recently in the NRL, and it's just been a complete game changer there. So with for 1 point field goals, we're dishing out 4 points, and for 2 point field goals, we're dishing out 6. So we are expecting that field goals are going to be a I guess an option for teams looking to kind of close out a match or really kind of hang on at the death. We're probably not going to see too many of them, but if you've got players like Adam Reynolds who can hit 2 point field goals, if you've got them in your team, not complaining. It's going to become a good scoring avenue for those sort of guys. So
yeah, it'll be interesting, especially with Reynolds and now not as competitive a team in the Broncos. He might have more opportunities to really hit those 2 point field goals.
Yeah, they might be relying on him a bit, eh?
Yeah. But yeah, that's all we have for today. It's been an interesting introduction into NRL fans, GameDay Squad NRL fantasy scoring, and we'll have a link in the description on a blog. I know Gus wrote a really good blog on just detailing a little bit more on the changes and why I've made them. So that'll be in the description below. But anything else you want to say, Gus?
Yeah, mate, no, good point bringing up the blogs. I think, obviously you've written a few really good ones. And if you are interested in finding, about certain positions, we're going to jump on a pod and talk about it a bit more in depth. But Praneet's gone in and wrote some really good blogs on players in certain positions. I think his hooker one was pretty good because there's slim pickings this year in terms of elite hookers in fantasy terms. But jump on, check him out. Mate, question for you. Might wrap it up after this one, but I guess any players in particular that you're really wanting to go after with your GameDay Squad team?
Well, I think the really interesting strategy with GameDay Squad fantasy is the fact you can hold them year on year. So it's the rookies. It's the rookies that you can kind of see upcoming and really rising, not on everyone else's radar yet. Those ones, I really want to build my squad for 2 or 3 years down the track. So someone like a Jack Howarth, who signed a big 5-year deal with the Storm when he's barely played a first grade game. Someone like a Selwyn Cobbo. These type of players, Jaden Campbell even, these big superstars that are just coming into their own right now. I really want to pick up them so, can hold them and really have them later on.
Yeah, too right, mate. Well, wishing you the best of luck when you're ripping open those packs.
Yeah, hopefully. Might even do it on stream if we can.
Oh, mate, we'll have to. Once we've got the ability to do so, we'll be doing that for sure.
Yeah. And next time we'll have a fullback podcast. We'll go through a little bit of preview on different fullbacks, the top tier ones, some of the traps, and some of those some of those unique picks and unique players that can really build your squad and be a unique point of difference. So that's what we'll be going through next time.
Good stuff. No, sounds good, mate. Look forward to it, and cheers for jumping on.
Cheers. Have a good one, everyone.
Take care.